We're
I'm caught on the charging cord.
It's hectic. Why?
How's that for an entrance, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, it didn't look like anything on your side.
Well, it looked like a
I know,
DP camera.
I know. I didn't necessarily put us in a great spot because I can't see anything because the light is shining on my eyes.
Well, let's hang out here for a little bit.
Okay, I don't know. Wait, how's the internet? Right, because this is sometimes spotty.
Yeah, we're right on the border region of where our Wi-Fi reaches to.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, data.
Well, no, but the other day the data wasn't working very good. How's the internet? Can anyone hear me? Is it working? It doesn't look bad. It's clear.
The interwebs is good.
Okay. Yeah, we're in this really weird spot for data. Where like we can just be in a really bad window. Like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But
Well, the other year
like 2 houses over and it's fine.
The other year, I think one of the cell towers in the area burnt during that forest fire summer, and then we had really bad service, on the farm. But
yeah,
that's not what we're here to complain
about. Oh yeah, it's true. True enough.
We're here to complain about the tulips.
Yeah. So we should get right to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this past weekend was the last of the tulips that we had to sell. So the last of the tulips were picked a couple weeks ago. We're really far behind on the videos.
We're getting caught up.
Yeah. Ian's finishing up the Mother's Day one, so that's gonna come out on Friday or Saturday.
We're really excited about that one.
Yeah. And then we have another one that we're working on getting out for Wednesday.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that, we've been crawling out of the hole after, the weather caused some problems, which is what this upcoming Wednesday video is about. And then, we had COVID and we just didn't have, we lost a week to being sick and then...
Yeah, you need to make sure you're talking at the camera.
Oh, really?
Well, because you were talking away, and it's very directional.
But we were we had COVID, so that sucked for a while, and then we still didn't have tons of energy right away. So we got behind on the videos. We were still recording everything, but now I've been pressing the buttons on the computers and making the videos happen. So I'm excited.
Yeah, because we have about 4 or 5 videos filmed that we're gonna start being able to get caught up on and get a little bit more timely.
The dream is that the vlogs get edited basically right after they get filmed, essentially.
Yeah.
Because it makes it easier on the brain to figure out what's going on in the timeline and stuff. And if you want to be efficient with things, you got to do things efficiently. So, and this year was supposed to be us really making an effort to turn over a new leaf as far as not being behind on everything. And I think we're making progress. We're working really hard. It's just that we had some setbacks that set us back, and now we're continuing this hard work. And it feels like if we just keep crawling, we keep climbing, then we're eventually gonna make it. And then
wait, just quickly, Leah wants to show you. This is the reason why I was late, because we went to the hardware store and we got distracted by the plant section, and so I bought her and her brother each a cactus garden. But they're cute, huh? They're tempting.
Yeah, that's super cool. Not on my face, please.
Yeah, they're cute, huh?
That's got a little flower on it.
And it has Sam is like, oh, my pet rock. There's a little rock in it that he's all excited about.
Yeah, there's a big little rock in it.
Yeah. Perfect kind of plant for me. I can't keep anything alive, but I feel like
I've turned over some cactuses.
I kill cactuses. I kill everything.
You've kept that.
I know, but I turned over a new leaf, not this past Christmas, but the Christmas before. I bought a Christmas cactus, And I've now successfully kept it alive for more than a year. So
And where was it this morning?
it was in the dishes.
Yeah,
in the
the
sink.
dishes. It's in front of the window that we keep open that has a screen, so Dusty was hanging out in the windowsill.
But it's still alive.
It's still alive, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a good
It's a
start.
Christmas cactus, so you can like soak it in dishwater and have it
The
not die.
flowers.
Yeah, the flowers fake. Okay. We're
Back to
5 minutes in
tulips.
and we
Take a drive.
we said we're gonna get to this, so let's get to this. Everything that Ian was kind of saying about the videos is is I
this-
know because I have like no
Look, we're in shade.
I know, but I'm in the shade.
The house is about
Every
to shade
once
us.
every once in a while, I allow myself to not be 100% covered. Okay, so everything that Ian was saying about the videos is kind of exactly the same thing that we have to say about tulips. So we had this extreme heat wave, right? Like record smashing heat wave. We went from having freezing nights to all of a sudden it was 30 Celsius, which is, I don't know, what is that? Like in the 80s?
Someone's got a 150-year-old Christmas cactus.
Yeah, because they're hard to kill. But I bet you it's like huge. I bet you it looks
Yeah.
good. Yeah, my grandparents had one that was like, 50 years old and it was cool. And it bloomed every year.
Yeah.
Too. Okay, but no, we're not going to be distracted. Okay, so we had this weather thing happen, which was like pretty catastrophic to the farm. Like we haven't really shared it in the videos because, as I said, we're really behind on the videos.
Yeah, so this Wednesday
but-
videos.
But basically, the story that is going to be unfolding, in all these videos that we have coming out is that, like, the farm really isn't doing that great. And it's because of this kind of extreme weather. So what happened with the tulips is we had a great plan for the tulips. The tulip plan was like 100%.
Yeah.
It's a great plan. We took a third of our tulips and we planted them inside of our unheated greenhouse. And yes. And then we planted the other 2/3 outside in raised beds. Okay, Leah,
He's done?
yeah, I don't know, right? Okay, so we took the other 2/3 and they were planted in compost, in raised beds, so they were really easy to pull. These are things that we learned from last year. We found that pulling them out of the ground when we went to harvest them was really slow. We found that having all the dirt on them, it was really slow to wash. By planting them into compost, they pulled way faster, they washed way faster. So we did a lot better on the harvesting and the cleaning efficiency, time-wise. But this weather came in and it made it so all of our tulips in the greenhouse to outside of the greenhouse all bloomed within like less than 2 weeks. What should have been 6 weeks of a blooming time, because the greenhouse tulips should have bloomed for 2 weeks before then the outside tulips began blooming. And then we have early double peony tulips, we have mid-season stuff. We have the like really late blooming. Our earliest is Exotic Emperor, and our latest is Queen of Night. And it all just bloomed at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
And so
And not only that, but
and then
we
the
weren't-
COVID.
well, the COVID, but we weren't, because I don't know, it was maybe just 3 days between our a night where we got -4 overnight to when it was like in the 30s, and so we were not able to plant out all these seedlings.
Yeah, our spring was late by 3 weeks. I track crocuses when the crocuses bloom to know like how early or like how cold it is relative. And it was the coldest thing we'd ever experienced by this huge gap. And then it went from that just to this being cooked in a heat wave.
So it was like all the tulips are coming at once. All of the seedlings that we haven't been planted out.
Because it was too cold. They would have died.
All of our lights are filled, like late in the season, so we couldn't start, the next round of seedlings. And it just seemed like everything was just
And the
right off the
seedlings were
bat.
getting really sad too because of the fact that they should have been planted out like a month earlier.
Yeah.
Because I started them for normal weather, and then it ended up being super cold, and then, yeah.
It kind of felt like, we're just trying our hardest. We're treading water and we're like doing good. We're like doing the best job that we can with all these things that we have on our plate. And then, in the matter of a couple weeks, everything just fell apart despite how hard we were trying.
Yeah.
And then we're like super behind. And so since then, what else can we do?
So
we just keep going.
So the other complication to the tulips is that we had COVID, and do you want to close the window? This is very distracting. Our cat ran away from us, so now he's an inside cat. But we're outside of the window, and he can hear us, so he's at the window just screaming his face off. Okay, but so right before the tulips started, we had COVID, and so when the greenhouse tulips were like starting and the weather was still normal, it was like, oh, okay, go out, harvest a few every day was fine. Because we couldn't do anything for a week with the COVID, but Ian and I both ended up like, being really, really worn out from being sick. And so it probably took us like 3-4 weeks before our energy levels were back.
We've got strawberry.
Okay, so all of this craziness with the like every single, because we had 15,000 tulips, right? So when we had the 15,000 tulips all happening, all blooming out at the same time, like maybe just like
Strawberry.
I know
Slowly
first
red.
go. That's exciting. All right.
Go find me one.
So when all of this was happening, we weren't healthy enough to be able to be on top of everything. So now I'm getting paranoid, right? Because I'm like, when the chat all of a sudden stops, I get worried about the internet. Okay, so everything was blooming all at once. We didn't eat. There was no way to pick it all on time, even if we were healthy. We recognized there was only so much we could do. And then in addition to that, because it was 15,000 tulips that were all blooming in a single week instead of, it was supposed to be like an 8-week tulip season, right? It was supposed to be, they start blooming and then we harvest them. They go in the cooler. And then, Friday comes, we prep them, we get them ready, we bring them down to the Saturday market and we sell them. The cycle continues again. They slowly start to build up as an inventory in the cooler, because the great thing about tulips is you can keep them for a few weeks when you pull them out with the bulbs attached in the cooler. But so that isn't what happened. Instead, we had 15,000 bloom, and, so when they come, the crates that they come in, like a big crate, holds 500 tulips. And I use those crates to load them back in to put them in the cooler. And when I pick them and put them into the crate, they hold 50 tulips, right? So what was already a pallet's worth of bulbs turned into 10 pallets worth of things to be stored in the cooler. And our cooler just isn't that big. We don't have anywhere near the capacity for that. So I'd already been like, we can't harvest all of this, right? I was like, things are opening quicker than we can get to it, so we are going to like triage. We're in triage mode. We're only gonna pick the best things. Every single, we were like, we're not picking singles anymore. We're only picking doubles. And then it was like, are these open? Okay, like we're not picking them. We're only picking the perfect ones. And so I don't know, what would you say? We picked about 60%,
Yeah,
and we left about 40% in the ground.
Yeah.
Right? So like thousands and thousands and thousands of tulips. You guys are gonna love it because it looks
It
absolutely
looked really
gorgeous.
nice.
Because we ended up having a mass display of thousands of bloomed out tulips. But yeah, so we were already triaging to only get what we could, and we didn't have the capacity to deal with it with our cooler. We ended up asking our neighbor because he has a cherry orchard, and so his like fruit season hasn't started yet, but we know that he has like cooler space to be able to hold the cherries. And so we begged.
Yeah.
We begged some cooler cooler space off of him. We took a truckload of tulips away, and then we were able to limp through. But we had to create this like insane, like temporary additional cooler system, which now has me being like, if we're gonna do this large capacity of tulips, right? Like we already have a fairly good cooler compared to a lot of other of like the local flower farmers, right? We have a cooler. It's not like we have a floral fridge. We have a lot of space.
Yeah. And cooler space it limits you. So having a bigger cooler means you can expand your business.
Yeah. But so now it's kind of like, well, do we need to have a second cooler if we're gonna do tulips? Like, and all of that kind of thing, that isn't included in the numbers of us losing money, right? Like the numbers of me saying that we're losing money is just like what we spent on supplies.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so the numbers, right? So that was the problem. The numbers are, I mean, I don't have hard numbers. I just have general numbers, but I have enough of the general numbers that I can say that we lost money. So we finished with our tulip sales. I think that we made about $10,000 on tulips, right? Like Mother's Day, right? Like
a little bit more.
No, because you have to. Well, so at this point we've made more than $10,000 in sales, but not every single dollar that we've made is income, right? Because there's taxes, right? So our $20 bouquets are actually $18 worth of flowers, because every single one of our $20 bouquets has $2 worth of taxes. So like I can't say that money went towards tulips. And then there's other things that have been included in the tulips that needs me to pull out a little bit of the dollar value. So we brought in about $10,000 worth of tulips. I figure that we spent about $8,000 on tulips. I think that the order was a little bit more, right?
There was other stuff in the order.
But there was other stuff in the order. We 100% lost money on daffodils, right? Because we bought and planted 3,000 daffodils, and all of our daffodils bloomed like really short. So there was very few that I was able to use, but that's different math because they're a perennial. They'll come back every year. The tulips are an annual.
I was actually really surprised at the daffodils because, my assessment on what's a good flower is what's the first flower on the table that sells when, what are the first bouquets that sell? And when we had straight tulip bunches or you had tulip and daffodil mixes, the daffodils were actually selling like very strongly, especially like initially. So I'm always excited to see another flower that people like, and maybe if it was a bunch of daffodils, people would have been like, but it added something to the tulips.
And I will say, Michelle, like a local flower farmer to us, she was selling straight daffodil bunches this year, and like, what's her busy backyard family. I don't know. Like,
You should know.
I know I should know. I'm like I want to look it up.
Yeah.
So she's
Leah just brought me a strawberry.
yeah. That's
Oh,
not very
thanks so
nice.
much.
There's lots though. They're all coming on. Yeah. She sells her bouquets for a lot more money than us, and she was selling daffodil bunches, and they were selling really strong, like just straight daffodils. So Kelowna might be more pro daffodil.
Yeah.
Than what the internet has led me to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Okay, but
So
I need to get
me-
through the numbers.
Okay.
Right, and then I'll let you go. Okay, so we brought in 10,000. About 8,000 went out, and then we probably spent what the raised beds. What was the wood? You said like the
I can't remember if it
wood
was
and the
500 or
mesh.
800. Probably
I thought
8.
you said it was 500 for the wood and the mesh.
That could have been.
Right?
Yeah.
So about 500, but then we also it was
And
like
then
a
the
load of
compost.
compost, right? So, the raised beds cost about $1,000. And then we had in the spring for the washing and like the prepping of the bouquets and everything, because we have an employee now. So that cost us money, right? So then when I included the employee cost in on it, then it was up over 10,000 for the investment, right? And as I said, that's not including things like the fact we bought another air conditioner because we were like, oh my god. That's not including the fact that the cooler really that we borrowed from our neighbors really should have had like an expense to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like we were very lucky that he was like, oh, it's no big deal, it's fine. Right? And so that's just money that went out versus money that went in, and we still our the break even isn't quite there. And then the reason why it's not profitable is the thing this doesn't include is any of Ian and I's labor. Right? So all the time that we spent planting them out, building those boxes, all the time I was harvesting, in all that money that was like employee in the spring, like there should be at least that much or more for my wage costs for having been there in the spring too. Right? So, when we include that, very much not profitable this year.
I'm like, I always feel like tulips are walking a bit of a fine line for profitability, because I remember our video last year. We actually ended up making this like tulip video that never got released on YouTube. It was for a documentary thing. It was kind of like a proof of concept before we made the bigger video. And so I crunched that. It was like the story of tulips, and it was the story of the season of tulips. And I edited a lot of that video, like over and over and over, and cut it down. So I remember the footage. And it was very far into the video, very, very far into the video, which means it was very far into the tulip season, before we were like, we broke even for costs. And so even when things were going well for us with tulips, it's risky, right? Because it's like, if things aren't going well, if there's any sort of hiccup, then like if we'd gotten COVID during like the season, like one of the markets days, right, or something, and we weren't able to go, we would have just been eating tons and tons of tulips that have, they all have, the cheapest bulb is like 30 cents. And
that's not taxes, that's not shipping.
That's not taxes, that's not shipping, and that's not including, 5% that are too small to use or something like that, that get stepped on or squished or something like that. A little bit of loss in there. So, even if you say each tulip has like 40 cents of value.
The average, I would say the average cost for tulips is 50 cents.
So if you say 50 cents a flower, well, a bouquet that's $20 bouquet, that's like $4 just in tulips. And so if you're not selling out of them when you go to the market, any that $4 comes off your profit. It's just very hard to, you know. So another thing that was kind of going bad for us at the start of the season is the first two markets. We were expecting the tulips just to like sell out, and
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
and they didn't. they really didn't sell out.
Which is a great point, right? Every bouquet that we bring to the market that doesn't sell is $4 in just in
Product cost.
in product cost, let alone labor.
Yeah. So you know, there was definitely a low point, but there's.
Well, thank you so much, Fab Dance. Tulips seem like such a hard crop in terms of predictability and margin of error. Hard to predict demand months in advance.
Now,
Yeah.
here's my opinion.
Well, and I will say, right, like we're setting up that we lost money. Like we're talking about what happened. We're gonna talk about why we're gonna do tulips again, right? Like we still have more to explain to this story.
Yeah, and tulips to me, they're just essential. You know, even if they are kind of a loss leader or we're breaking even on them, I'm not expecting them to make us a ton of money. What I want, because the most valuable customer to us is the person who starts shopping with us frequently and buys multiple bouquets over the course of the year. You know, there's lots of return customers at the farmers market. There's lots of return customers at the roadside stand, and there's lots of like special order return customers. So, you know, last year near the end of the season, when we had the roadside stand going, it was doing really well. People got into the habit of buying, and I want to get those people back into the habit of buying routine bouquets from us as early as possible, and new people as well. Like convert new people to it. So the idea is that tulips are as early, basically, as we in Canada can have our flower farm open for business, and so it's like we're open for business. We're here, you know, remember us. It's exciting. It's summertime. Like start buying bouquets, make your house look beautiful. And so it's a bit of an advertisement. And it's like, I don't think we're ever going to like lose a ton of money on tulips. I don't think, because they're always going to sell. We're going to make money on them. They come in for Mother's Day. You know, there is value to them. And so I'm not worried about like, you know, just losing our shirts on the tulip crop. You know, it's like, oh, if you lose money, you lose some, you know, some money, and you lose a bunch of like labor that you sunk into it.
Yeah.
But it's not.
No, I mean, Ian's point that he's making here is the point, right? That this is like why tulips, like why we're not going to stop doing tulips, and honestly, part of our advantage as a flower farm, you know, in competing with other flower farms around us, is that, you know, it is very financially risky, right? Like you need to have a lot of capital to be able to invest into tulips, right? Like
no one else. Well, there are some other people selling tulips at the farmers market
now
this
year.
Yeah.
Right? There wasn't last year, right?
But the tulips that they're selling, they're mostly all singles, and there are very few that aren't just like a single basic color.
And because I see you guys talking in the chat. So tulips are an annual because the tulips that we grow, like you need the leaves to be able to have a stem, right? And the tulips that we grow, these like specialty tulips, they're not like these crazy like 3-foot tulips, right? So you can't cut them and still leave some leaves. These, like, to get a bouquet height stem, you need to pull them out, you know, and this is the bulb and this is like the whole plant, and you cut it here because like this is how tall you need it to be, right? So to sell the varieties that we sell, which like are special, there's a reason why we grow what we grow. You can't get them anywhere else, and people are really excited about them. So you have to cut the bulb off. You have to treat them as an annual. But there are, like, there's stuff that I have in my home garden that gets like crazy tall, and I can go and I can pick it and I can sell it and have it come back every single year. It's just, they're Darwin single tulips, and they don't really have a ton of value, right? So if someone goes down to the farmer's market with a bunch of single tulips, that are like at the same height, but because they picked them without the leaves, and then they try to compete with us, they're just like, they look like they've been picked out of their landscaping, which is one of the advantages of what we look like down at the farmer's market. We never look like we've just picked a few bouquets out of our landscaping. We look like a florist shop. We look like, whoa, like there's something different happening here. And, as I was kind of saying at the beginning, like, the only reason why we can do what we're doing is because we are in a financial position where we can invest a lot of money into the farm and then not get that, we can dump $10,000 worth of bulbs in the fall, right? I don't think we pay until they ship. But even if we needed to, we could front the cost for a year before getting the return.
Yeah.
Because we are in a financial position that we can do that. But a lot of other smaller, like, startup farms, like, it just makes no sense.
We also have the space.
Yeah.
And not everybody has the space.
Or the cooler. You can't do tulips without a cooler.
Part of what I feel, what I envision for the business that we're trying to build, because I don't want to build like a small part-time business. I want to build like an actual financially successful flower farm. And so, you need to be able to do volume. You need to, be big to be able to do that. So,
or to do what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because we're not trying to make $20,000 to supplement our income, over the summer season, right? Like, we
want to make like a good actual wage from it, and so,
and our plan all along has been like large volume, and then we have space to be able to sell wholesale if we need, right? We don't need, if we sell 100,000 flowers and we make $1 per flower, even if retail it could sell for $5, we're still left in a position of having made $100,000, right? And I know that saying things like selling 100,000 stems sounds crazy, but because of how we set up the system, like 100,000 stems really isn't that difficult, right? Like, for context, the 6-week season of tulips was 15,000 bulbs, right? So our tulip season, which is the beginning of our season, has us planning to handle in just tulips 15,000 stems. And then, it's not like, oh, tulips is like this huge number and then that's over and we're just doing bits and pieces, right? Like every week we kind of are wanting to be picking like 10,000 stems, right? It's, and when you have like, when I say, oh, we're going to harvest 10,000 stems, that seems insane, right? But when you go and you're like handling it, right? Like when you're picking like yarrow and it's like, okay, 100 stems, right? Like, and it takes like a minute, and you have the cooler space to be able to store it, and you have the ability to sell these high volume numbers retail, like what we're doing with the bouquets, or you're selling them wholesale. So like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stems are going out to a single customer, and you have many of these customers who buy hundreds of stems. It's a different system.
Yeah. My vision, like there's flowers I have in my mind. There's flowers that are never going to be super profitable, and then there's other flowers
like bachelor buttons and cosmos.
Yeah, like bachelor buttons, cosmos. And then there's other flowers that I see us being able to actually make money on. Some of it is just like perennials that grow really easily, or things that self-seed and just come back every year, or stuff that we can grow very easily, like
lilies.
lilies,
Perennialized lilies.
or like how you just run the cedar down the bed for the amaranth, right?
And grass and
Yeah, it's like there's elements of.
I think your video done pretty good. What?
it's got a water show in the background.
He's making a water feature so that we have a little fountain behind us. But yeah, it's like there's going to be flowers that are going to be kind of hard to make money on, but you know, if they get people's attention and if they sell the bouquet, then in there, like the other flowers, they still look great. Maybe they wouldn't sell as a bunch or something like that, but you know, you have a bunch of rudbeckia in your bouquet.
Yeah,
and it's
we make money on rudbeckia.
Yeah,
we make like serious money on rudbeckia.
Yeah, and so it's mixing the two, and that's how we find, you know.
No. He's got the cat heading to the water. Someone's about to
learn a lesson.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Are you gonna give me Kaya?
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Okay, but Kaya's gonna want free.
Sam took us out. Okay.
Okay, you got Kaya, but let's let him go
Sam
now,
with
okay?
Kaya.
Put him down. You know he's a grumpy boy.
Okay, so the
Put him
reasons.
down. No.
Okay, Sam. Okay, the reasons why tulips make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they make us stand out from other flower options.
Yeah.
Right? Like as we said, right? Like the fact that we are able to invest into tulips, because we're in a financial position that we can invest into tulips, it means that we look different from other people who can't do that. Right? The other thing that tulips do, you know, in the same way, is they begin our season like so much earlier. Like Ian was talking about that. And when the tulips come, because there's nothing else, and I know Ian said this, but it's worth, like, this is an important point. People are so excited when, yes, we
can see it in the camera, Sam.
Yeah. When tulips start, people are so excited about tulips. People, like, so it's some of our easiest and strongest sales of the entire year, right? And so we were a little nervous when it wasn't that way down at the market, but like it really did start the farm stand strong. No closer, because then it'll spray us, okay?
We also learned a lesson last fall that I think plays a role, which was after Canadian Thanksgiving, which is near the start of October, the sales really just kind of stopped. And we had a really late frost last year. We didn't get a first frost.
We had flowers until beginning of November.
Yeah, it was like November 7th was our first frost or something like that. And so the bouquets weren't necessarily looking any different. They still had all these like summer flowers in them, but the sales just like took a nosedive. And I think it's because people aren't, like, it's Canada. We live in Canada. People don't think fresh local flowers outside of this like summertime, you know. It's spring, but it feels like summer, or, you know, now it feels like fall, and so I'm done. You know, they sold well at Thanksgiving because people had a reason to buy them. They were going to like a big meal, so they needed a bouquet. But then after that, it was like nobody's thinking, oh, I want to go pick up some fresh flowers. So we think that maybe just that sometimes the tulips can kind of knock onto this time of the year where people aren't thinking that they want to buy some local flowers. But, you know, it confused us because the previous year, we take tulips to the farmer's market and they'd sell out. And then, so we prepared to bring more so that we could sell out and still have, you know, sell the amount we had last year and still have more to sell and sell all the way through to the end of the market. But then we had more available, and then we were selling less, right? So we were we didn't know what was going on, and we still don't exactly know what's going on. That's just a theory that, you know, maybe that's happening.
It kind of seemed like people didn't think, in the same way that people think local flowers aren't available. I'm like just waiting for us to get sprayed by Sam.
I think he's going further away.
In the same way that people don't think there's local flowers available after Thanksgiving. I think that people don't think there's local flowers available before Mother's Day. And so Mother's Day this year was really late in the year. And so I think that it was kind of just people weren't thinking about flowers until Mother's Day happened. Because the sales have been back to normal ever since Mother's Day.
Yeah, we're doing good now.
Okay, so reasons why tulips make sense, right? They start the season strong, right? Even if it means that they don't start the season strong until Mother's Day, they still start the season strong.
Yeah.
Right? And like this is only our second year with tulips to sell, right? So like, you know, people don't know when the stands open. People don't know when we're going to be down at the farmer's market. You know, we didn't do a great job of keeping our local customers informed over the winter. We kind of like just took like a social media break. So like we could have done a better job on like hyping the fact that things were going to be back in season. But yeah, so they still make sense. And then the other thing that they do is because there's less competition, right? No. Okay, maybe. Sorry. Because there's less competition with other farms, because they happen at this time of year when there's nothing else, it means that you can gather in these like really high value customers. You can gather in these customers that want flowers all the time in their house, and you can get them before anyone else gets them because you have the earliest flowers. And then, so if you break even on tulips, but you get this customer that then continues to be a great customer throughout the rest of the season, then they make a lot of sense just even as a loss leader, right? And I've heard other flower farmers say that tulips purely are a loss leader. They grow them so that they can have the content, so that they can have something available, and their only function is just to get people excited about flowers and about the farm and to be available, right?
They could also, I think tulips could make sense if you're smaller and you don't have to sell a billion of them like we have to, like we're going for. You know, if you're going for like a smaller thing and you know that you're going to sell out, then sure, knock yourself out, right? They take up space, but
not really. They take up like it was 3 beds for 15,000.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's
so you could you know be a smaller farm and they could make more sense because you're not risking it by going so hard into them as we are. For us,
I'm going to answer a couple of questions here. So someone's asking if we could sell them in pots and have them be profitable. And we actually, if we were to plant them into like a pot, like what you see like early in the spring and sell them, we would, the price for a potted tulip is actually lower than what people will pay for a cut tulip. So it would cost us more money and more labor, and people would be like more price sensitive.
Yeah.
So there's no world that makes sense.
Just, you know, there's obviously people who make businesses out of lots of different, you know, business models of ways to sell flowers. We're zeroed in on that $20 price point specifically because it's big enough that it adds up to something substantial if you can sell in volume, but it's also small enough that it's not a barrier to, you know, a ton of people who are interested in flowers in our area. And so, you know, that $20 price point, it's what people want. Bouquets at the farmers market, for one. They're not going to bring potted plants home, and you know, we could bring them, but it's just a lot harder to sell. And so
bringing them,
yeah, and it takes more size, and you know, people are walking over to the market, or they're going to be like out for a little while. They want a bouquet, but they want to walk around the market with it.
Okay,
too.
I know the perfect way to explain why. So our customer would never say, "Wow, that's such a good deal," right? Like we're specifically not targeting anyone who would be like, "That's a great deal," right? We're not looking for that customer. we're looking for the customer who doesn't care about the price. And a potted tulip customer is like more like the type of person who's going to be like, what a great deal, I can enjoy them in my house, and then I can plant them after and enjoy them again. And that's not our customer, right? Like if we were to target that customer, we would have a lot less success. And we know because we used to target that customer. We used to, do these $10 bouquets and we couldn't sell them, right? Like no one wanted to buy a $10 bouquet, but as soon as we put two of them together and had a $20 bouquet, they started selling like crazy, right? So, it's just a different type of shopper. But I also understand that shopper because I'm not my customer. I'm the person who would buy the potted tulips and then plant them into my garden. I'm not the person who would buy the cut tulips, right? There's no world that I would ever buy tulips. Ian's ignoring me.
I'm talking to our irrigation friend. I have to drain the irrigation system tonight.
Oh, completely? To turn it off? Or
because we're going to do some work on the bottom box down there that's leaking. He's coming to fix that.
So if I have any watering to do.
Yeah, I just put an alarm on for like 11 or something like that. So you got a few hours to water still.
Yeah. Okay, so there was another question. That was like, it was a really good question.
The thing about $20 too that I just want to point out, $20 is like a Lego block price point too, because some people want bigger bouquets. And if people, sometimes we bring the $40 arrangements to the market, but if somebody just wants a bigger bouquet, then I'm like, just buy multiples of the same, since we make them in recipes, buy multiples of the same recipe and then put them together when you get home. And so when we're selling at a $20 price point at the farmer's market, we're also selling at the $40 price point and the $60 price point. We've got all of those covered.
Though last year we were selling the $40 bouquets and they did really well.
Yeah, they do really well.
Yeah.
But they're also, like some markets we don't always bring them. And then when people are like, I can see that they have a desire to make a big purchase of flowers, then I just suggest, I'm like, why don't you buy multiples? One of my favorite things about selling is I like telling people just to buy it. Those sleazy like, teach your employees how to sell. 90% of employees don't even ask for the sale. And I'm like, well, that's probably a good point. You should probably ask or tell people that you think that they should buy this thing that you want them to buy. So, I'm always, on the lookout.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, I don't know, should I get it? And then he'll be like, do it, get it. Yeah, like you clearly want it.
Yeah.
Right, and fair enough, right? It's not scummy because he's not gonna tell someone who doesn't want flowers to buy that they should buy themselves flowers, but it's like they're there, they want to buy the flowers. He's like, just do it, you want them.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. Don't ask.
This is literally my business.
Yeah. Okay, so the other question was, would we sell tulips to florists?
Yeah.
And we would, but we don't focus on tulips to florists because of the fact that we're doing okay because they've had dinner, right?
I'm gonna make some popcorn.
Okay. So we don't focus on tulips to florists because we have to make $2, right? Like, as we kind of gone through on this, like, the money's tight on tulips. So, like, anyone who buys them from us, like, retail is getting, like, a crazy deal because we literally can't sell them for less than that. And so we do offer, like, a tiny bit of a discount for the florist, but normally wholesale is about half or like a third of retail. And we definitely can't do that. So we're not investing into tulips for florists because we can't compete with what the wholesale prices are for tulips. Like
if people ever ask me at the market if there's any sort of deals or anything like that, I like to go into a little spiel about our business model. I'm like, what we're trying to do here is we're we're trying to bring cool flowers to the market that you're not going to see normally, but we're trying to price them at a very competitive price, which $20 is a very competitive price for some of the tulips, ranunculus. You don't see those, right? It's like people's tulips from their landscaping, or other perennials is what's selling at that time. So if you want these specialty things, but we're trying to price them at a pretty fair price, then we've got to
You're
sell.
already getting the deal.
You're already getting the deal. And I'm like, we don't make a lot on every bouquet. We rely on selling out every week. And so I'm like, I can't do deals. And
also
people
if he came back and he said he did do details or deals, then fired.
Well,
fired.
During the last half hour of the market, anything goes. But then
they're never discounted, but it's like, oh well, you can buy 2 for $30.
Yeah, and I think that's a good approach. And Serina talked to me about that in the past, because I was giving deals off of the price of a single bouquet, and she used to work at a shoe store, and they did buy one get one
50% off.
And it was just like that particular pricing strategy is like fire to like people's brains, and everybody knows that multiple items on a
which is funny because it's usually only like 20% off is what you're getting, right? Because it's always the deal on the cheaper one, right? And yeah.
But it does the things that make people think that now they're getting a good deal, and
it is a good deal when we do, because we do it every once in a while on the bouquets. Right? If it's like, whoa, we have a lot of flowers.
It helps us to blow through inventory.
We do it to blow out. And it's also like, it's like a way of like giving back to our regular customers.
Yeah. But it also increases your average like sale number, right? It leads to some bigger sales, which is kind of funny. People are like, can I get a deal on this bouquet? And then they end up giving you more money than they had originally intended to. And they walk away thinking they got a deal. And you're like, And
then Ian's like, yeah, I'm closer to being a sellout.
Yeah, I'm closer to being a sellout. And my, sales number for the day has just got bigger, right?
Yeah.
So, gotta love that buy one, get one.
Okay, so what we haven't talked about yet, which is really important to the story about tulips, because... So what are we going to do about tulips going forward? So we have a lot of tulips that bloomed out. Part of us being like, whatever, just let them bloom out, is because we didn't pick the leaves, because we live in a place that's like so good for growing tulips, we can actually save those bulbs. I was saying to Ian, like, I don't know that we'll actually make any money on saving them, right? I don't know that the labor will be less than 50 cents each to go and harvest them and replant them.
But we're gonna.
But we're going to, right? So all the 40% that went to that didn't get used and sold, we're gonna salvage. And they may become stuff that we plant for selling next year, or they might just get mixed into the landscaping, which has value for us for you guys, right? If we have thousands of tulips blooming all over our property,
it looks good.
Right? It looks great on the videos, and then you guys enjoy the videos more, and then we make money from the videos, and it's a wash. So like there's not necessarily money, but there's some stuff to be salvaged out of what went to waste. And then we talked about it. We're like, okay, we probably shouldn't do 15,000. That's too many, right? Because
we don't need to get bigger next year with the tulips, but roughly the same, maybe a slight step back.
So what we said was, because we hadn't ordered the tulips, we were late on ordering the tulips too, and so we were like, you know what, let's order 8,000 tulips. We'll have some that we save so that we can have 10,000 planted, but it'll be a little bit less so that we don't, because the cooler issue, that was kind of the biggest thing.
Then if we sell out again, like if we're like,
if we sell out, that's great.
Then the business can expand the next year into buying more tulips. But it just lowers the risk. Yeah. It lowers the workload.
So
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Classic story, we end up ordering 10,000. 4,000. I couldn't limit myself to. And I was so excited about daffodils that I think I ordered like 3,000 or 4,000.
It's a good thing we're a flower farm.
I know. It's gonna look real good next year.
Yeah.
So we have lots of tulips coming again.
Can I talk about something quickly, and then I'm gonna go.
Sure.
Um,
Because I have like the point that I like want to get to.
this isn't tulip related.
Well, then make it short.
Okay. So, like we were talking about earlier in the video, on Wednesday we have.
Is it daffodil related?
No, it's video related.
Video. Oh,
Video
okay.
release. So Wednesday we have a vlog coming out. That we filmed early May, so it's a bit late in coming. And then on Friday, we're releasing the Mother's Day video?
I don't know. We don't have a date yet, but we were talking about maybe doing a premiere.
Yeah, we're talking
for the Mother's Day video because we're really excited about it. So
yeah, and it's like I think it ended up being 54 minutes. So apologies.
It's an epic.
Apologies to everyone.
But it is epic.
But
because there was like how many markets? There was like 3 markets. We sold like almost $8,000. Oh,
too bad.
We've already talked. We did a live video,
so
going over everything.
It was an
emotional roller coaster.
It was an emotional roller coaster. It was a lot of work to film and to make, and so I know that it sounds silly when we ask for, but could you please, when you watch the video, if you watch the video, that's being presumptuous, give it a like, share it on your Facebook or something. Just a little bit of engagement, make a comment. For videos like that, it can really help YouTube decide to give it a little bit more of a push out, and in those videos, because I just for editing alone, it was like 3 pretty much full days of me sitting at a computer.
That video is like
pressing the buttons.
That video is like at least 60 hours of work of you purely. Ian destroyed his camera. We had to
let's not talk about that. so
it was an expensive video to make.
Yeah, and I edited it really like tight, so it's like 54 minutes, but it's not like, it's not like a lot doesn't happen in it. A ton happens, and the pacing is really good. So this is me just being like my video, please, because it helps. But I'm gonna go make a little bit of popcorn.
Okay, and then I'm gonna make my final point about tulips. This is like the point that I've been driving to.
Yeah. Okay.
For the last hour, and then I'll answer a few questions, and then I'm gonna go eat popcorn too.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me. Stick around for Serina.
Okay. So the point of this video about tulips, the whole point of this tulip, rant, this 1 hour tulip rant, is that we lost money. We very much lost money on tulips this year. We lost money and we sunk lots and lots of labor into tulips. It makes it seem like tulips are a really bad idea for us on the farm. But you can't plan for the weather. And the one thing that I do want to plan for is that we are going to get horrible weather probably every year. I want a whole variety of options so that we can have entire crop losses like we had this year with tulips. We need, if we have enough things, a few things can be a complete disaster and the farm is still fine. But we said that, we only harvested 60% of what we planted. We mentioned that we had really, really bad sales. So that meant that we had tulips that were completely going to waste out of that 60%. So we lost all this money. But if it hadn't had been the year that it was, no.
Pretty.
Yes, that's great. If we wouldn't have had the weather. If the weather would have cooperated and been normal weather, if we would have had more time to be able to sell the tulips because we had the longer season, like what normal weather would have been, we could have, the numbers then would have looked like, instead of having, brought in $10,000 in tulips and just barely covered what we invested in, the numbers could have been that we brought in $20,000 worth of tulips, and we covered all the labor that we put into it. We covered all the money investments that we put into it. We covered all of the marketing fees. We covered everything, and still at the end, we were left over with profit. That's what the story could have been this year, right? So, worst case scenario, we had so many bad things happen, and still the loss that we had this year was a loss that really isn't that big of a hit, right? Like, the loss is pretty close to zero, right? So, it is a risk. It is a major risk. And I don't think that anyone who has a new flower farm, anyone who is like not in a financial position where they can afford to like invest money and not get it back for a year, anyone who's in that specific position.
Look, I am wet.
Yes, you're silly.
I am
Okay,
wet.
no, stop.
I am wet.
Okay, Daddy's making popcorn. Go inside.
wet.
People with different
I am
circumstances.
wet.
I'm not
I am
going
wet.
to.
I am
Yeah,
wet.
yeah, I know.
Am wet. I am wet.
People with different
I am wet.
circumstances.
Mommy, I am wet.
Yes, I know you're
I
wet.
am wet.
Okay, go tell Daddy. Daddy doesn't know you're wet. Go tell wet.
I am wet.
Everyone says they know you're wet.
I
Yes.
am wet.
Someone's asking, are you wet?
I am wet.
Okay. Yeah, so
Say
different
back.
circumstances.
I want you to
Tulips
say
are,
back.
are really.
What would you say?
Yes, you are wet.
What?
Okay.
What would you say, man
Okay.
or dog? Come on.
Sorry.
I want to
children.
know.
They're full on summer. Yeah.
I want
so,
to know.
I don't know.
I want to know.
Please, enough, okay? I think that tulips still make a lot of sense for us, right? So I think that it's smart for us to still go forward with making a big investment into tulips. I'm not sitting here, crying about how the tulip season went, even though it was a complete disaster. Yeah, so that's my point about tulips. We lost money, but, we're still gonna do it again. Okay, so someone's asking, what filler flowers do you use in the spring? What filler flowers are you guys? No, I will throw that out. Get that away from me. No. Hey, he's doing bubbles. I hate bubbles. They're so sticky. Okay, no. You know what? I will tell Daddy that you can't have popcorn then. Don't be like that. Okay, so filler flowers. So for what? Okay. This is my season. So we do tulips, and what I pair with tulips is I pair cherry branches with tulips. So early on they have buds and they flower, and then they have leaves, and then the leaves get really big and they don't look really good, and then I rip the leaves off and they have little green cherries. So that's what I pair with tulips. And then I have ranunculus, and I just do ranunculus, and then like a greenery. I have this shrub thing that I use to pair with it. So like I don't always have like what other people would call like filler flowers, because often what people mean when they say filler flowers is like a smaller flower to go along with a bigger focal flower. Sometimes I just have greenery or texture pieces. But it's fine when it's stuff like tulips and ranunculus that kind of steal the show. And then another thing that I'd consider like a filler flower to go with the ranunculus that I had this year is stalk. It bloomed really nicely. Often I have snapdragons. We messed up snapdragons this year, so I won't have any of those. But I don't really consider those filler flower either. I consider those like a line flower. But so we're gonna have no cool flowers this year. Like all of our spring is completely messed up. We're kind of like things like the weather is like a very serious problem for us. Things are very, very bad. So we're kind of like, okay, fall. We'll just focus on getting fall back on track. But normally we'd have all the cool flowers. So we'd have Amy, we'd have Orlea, we would have Nigella, bachelor buttons, larkspur, stuff like that. All these cool flowers that do really well. Those are what I'd consider like a filler flower. Feverfew, we do yarrow. We'll definitely have yarrow. Basically, what our filler flower this year is gonna be yarrow and feverfew. But so in June, when it's kind of like there's only perennials, I'll consider yarrow a disc, right? Because it's like a round circle of color. So I don't, even though it's like it's not a focal, you need something to draw the eye. It's like I don't always think of things in the same way that other people would think of them. But yeah, so that's kind of what I normally have. Ideally what I want to do is I want to build towards having kind of like a succession of focal flowers and then just grow like an accompaniment to go with them. And so what my year would be tulips, ranunculus, peonies, lilies, sunflowers, and then maybe like zinnias, and then into dahlias for the fall, right? So that would kind of be like my season, right? And it would be kind of like May is tulips, like June is ranunculus, June is the peonies, July is the lilies, August is the sunflowers, September is the dahlias, and like maybe even into October, like I'd be more like, flowering kale, stuff like that. But it would still be kind of like dahlias, sunflowers, zinnias, all of that continues into the fall season. I don't know that I'd necessarily do a specific focal for October. I'd just kind of be like, anything goes for the end of the season. But that's kind of like what I hope to work towards. And then just, finding stuff. My goal is to find something that's like a spray style. Oh, Lysianthus, right? Lysianthus is kind of like the August, September one. Yeah. Any thoughts on living flower arrangements, like the ones in pots containers? So, like we kind of talked about that earlier in the video about selling pots with the tulips, and it's just not our customer, right? Anyone who'd be like, oh, this is amazing. It's like I could buy this flower arrangement, but it's going to last me all summer instead of just a week in the vase. What a great deal. It's just not who we're targeting, right? So, I don't think that we do any sort of living arrangement because they're difficult. They're difficult to handle. They're difficult to transport. They're difficult to sell. And it's not the same customer as what we're targeting. One thing that we have talked about wanting to target is having some like flower plants, like selling perennial plants that people could plant into their gardens. Because one thing that we noticed is people who love flowers, they love flowers in their house and out in their gardens. And people who buy our bouquets, they may have flower gardens and they don't want to cut their own flowers because they want to enjoy their flowers outside as well as having flowers inside. So it would work well for the customer if we had some like flowers available in the spring when people are planting out their gardens, and then throughout the summer. The great thing about perennials is you grow them, and it's not like they have a time limit. One of the things that we struggled with our veggie seedling sale we used to do is we'd have this kind of 3-week window to sell everything, and if it hadn't been sold by that point, it had outgrown its space and it was like starting to suffer, and so we couldn't really sell it anymore. So like the cut flowers, you know, it's a perishable product, and so it's nice to have some stuff that isn't a perishable product, kind of like the dried flowers. Like, you know, we can do dried flowers and then they just every week they go back to the market, they don't sell, they go in the bin, they go back to the market. The great thing about having perennials in a pot is if it took a year to sell, that's fine. They can keep living in the pot. But let's see, there was a question here I thought that I saw. Do birds or animals bother or munch your flowers? So we do have deer in the area, and our fence is not it's like fallen down and broken in spots, and it's also, you need like an 8-foot fence to keep deer out. So we do have deer in our yard sometimes. Oh, thanks, Sam. You brought me a strawberry. But oh, thanks. Oh, thank you so much, Jennifer. I love the little sticker things. That one's really funny. Yeah, so we do get deer, but they don't really bother anything. Because that would, you know, if we had deer who were coming in and eating our tulips, then yeah, like tulips would not make sense. I would be very sad if deer came and ate our, you know, $8,000 worth of tulip bulbs. We're surrounded by cherry orchards, and deer are like huge jerks. They will eat the thing that would be the most painful to you emotionally if they ate it. And so they know that if they eat the baby cherry trees, they'll kill a cherry tree, which like the orchardists have spent the last like 3-4 years growing, and it costs the orchardists like crazy amounts of money, and it's so destructive and so damaging. So they'll walk past my tulips and be like, I could eat those, but instead I'm gonna go eat this cherry tree because I thrive on farmer tears. So we've been lucky so far, but we do eventually want to get a deer fence in, and you know, it's just, you know, it's kind of year 5 to 10 projects, like the refining of the farm. Okay, there's another question about strawberries are good. They're too tempting to wait. There was a question about like hard goods, right? Like selling like vases and plant kits, things like that. So we haven't done that, but it's something that I would like to do. So one thing that I've thought of is that it would be good to have. Sorry, I'm distracted by the chat. Oh, thanks so much. Towards the deer fence. Yeah, I know. We need the deer fence for 2 reasons. We need to keep the deer out, and then we need the fence to try to keep the cats in. The problem with the knockdown fence is they can get out of our yard, but if we had a deer fence, we're pretty sure the cats wouldn't be able to leave the yard either. Okay, so in the stand, we'd like to put some vases in there so that customers could buy them. We don't get asked for it very often. Mosquitoes are eating me. But I know that we do sell lots of stuff as gifts, and I know that on occasion it would be nice for customers to be able to put them into a vase to then give them as a gift. So we have this like top shelf that we don't really utilize very well, because the stand was originally built to put veggies in it, right? When we built the stand, we still were kind of flower and veggie farmers. So it would be a great spot to have a collection of vases that we could offer for people. And other farmers have done these like cut flower garden kits, that I'm like, oh, you know, that's something that I'd consider, like, you know, grow a tray of seedlings for people, and then they can go and they can plant their own garden. Another thing that I would be interested in trying in the stand, you know, I'm cautious about what we put into the stand because it is 100% self-serve. So there are some things that are like higher risk of being a theft item. And so, you know, like I don't want to put things that if they got stolen, it would like seriously affect the profitability of the stand. But I would be interested in trying to do some house plants, or succulents, things like that in the stand. You know, so it'd be like, oh, there's a small collection of house plants, and you know, they're there that you could shop to. You know, I know that being a commercial farm, we could like wholesale buy in. We could wholesale buy in tropical plants. We could wholesale buy in some succulents. I could buy a nice pot, do them up, you know, and then I could have them under lights. I could keep them, and then as they sell, I can just keep restocking the stand. But yeah, no, like I wouldn't propagate them myself. It would be something that I'd buy in and then retail out. But I guess yet again, I need to be careful about that because I technically am only allowed to sell things that we grow ourselves. We'd have to, so I guess I couldn't do that. But, you know, in the future. There was a question I saw. Let's see. In order of importance, where do irrigation systems fall for you at this point? So in the Okanagan, you can't grow anything without irrigation, right? Like it doesn't rain. Like even grass, like without watering, the grass just dies in the summer. The color palette of the Okanagan is blue sky, yellow hills because it's dead grass, and then blue lakes. The paint in the outbuilding, I know that people like don't necessarily see it, but it's like an Okanagan mural is what it's supposed to be. So it's like the blue sky and then the yellow and the orange like hills and then the blue lake. That's like what we were trying to go for, the Okanagan palette. But yeah, so without water, like there's nothing. So at this point, we've spent $15,000 on our irrigation system, which is money that's like I'm very happy to have spent all that money. We're getting to the point that it's getting close to being done. There's a few zones that we need to add to it, but last year we got, like Ian was talking to a friend of ours who does irrigation, and we hired him in last year to connect all of because we have a computer and we're not very good at electrical stuff. So we got him to come in, connect all of like the irrigation system so that it can be run by the computer. You know, so it's really good. It's really good. You know, it's one of those things, it's just like we bump hoses because it's not done. And like my dream is like one of these days the irrigation will be done. You know, all last year we wanted to plant plants up at the front of the farm stand. And it just didn't happen because I couldn't plant anything up there until we had water. I planted stuff now. We're like working on a video about getting the front of the farm stand and everything's like beautified. But I don't have the irrigation yet, right? Because Ian's like, oh yeah, like we have the supplies on hand. He's like, oh, it'll take me a day to put it together. But we've instead been prioritizing trying to get all these videos out. You know, and so every time I plant anything without irrigation, it makes me nervous because it's like, oh, it's going to be so much work. You know, and a perfect example is the front, right? So I have to move the hose 3 times to water what I've planted up there. And just the walking out and turning the water off and moving the hose, you know, every time I do that takes 10 minutes, right? To get to the place, to get it, and then to go back to wherever I was working. You know, because walking from place to place, it takes time. So to water that garden, And because it's a new established garden, I'm kind of like watering it like every day or every second day, and it takes a half an hour, right? And it's like if I have a few different spots that I have to bump a hose, I have 4 spots where I have to bump a hose, all of a sudden 2 hours of my day is taken up just wandering around moving hoses everywhere to water things. So it very quickly eats up a lot of your time. And for the scale that we're on for the growing, we wouldn't be able to water it all with a hose, because there's just not enough hours in the day. Even though, because we're on a 1.5 inch farm irrigation line, right? So we have like a huge amount of water flowing through our irrigation system. So I can set up hoses and I could run like 4, 5, 6 different sprinkler heads all at the same time. But every single bed, you have to move the sprinkler 3 times to do every single bed. It only spreads so far. I could spend my entire life trying to water things and never get anything done and still not water enough. So yeah, in the, I think the original question was like, how important is irrigation? And or like, what's like, where does it fall on the priority? And where it falls on the priority is like before you plant anything. And every time I plant things before getting irrigation in, I regret it. Every time like I plant and then have to bump a hose, it's a mistake that I regret. Okay, let's see. Are you allowed to get into the weed business? No, because there's a bunch of rules to it, but also it's a bad idea. It's one of those like boom and bust industries. Everyone thought there was like tons of money to be made in it, and there really isn't. We had like one of the in our community, we had one of the biggest growing businesses in Canada or something, and they've gone bankrupt. And like the city's like, oh, they owed me like $15,000 in water fees that they never paid. So yes, I'm glad I never got into that. Flowers, guys, I'm telling you, flowers is the one. I still regret. Okay, I'll say this and then I gotta go. One of the first plans that we came up with for the farm, one of like, because what kind of farm should we be? What should we do? We know our property. Like, what should we do with this? One of the first things that we thought to do was to be a peony farm. We like, with the information that we had, it seemed like there was a good chance we could actually get 10,000 peonies onto our property. And we figured it would cost us about $100,000 to invest into the irrigation. Gotta have the irrigation and the peony plants and the refrigeration that we'd need in order to store, like the 100,000 peonies that we'd pick off of the 10,000 plants. And I was like, I had all the numbers, I'd figured everything out, and I was like, yeah, this works pretty good. And then I was like, but I don't really want to be like a monocrop. If we have any fungal issues, we'd have to be doing spraying. I don't really want to be doing spraying. Like, let's not do that. And I still think to this day that was probably the best idea. That was the best business out of all the business ideas. So, that's the one probably everyone else should do. Or be a garlic farm. I think I saw a comment. Did we plant garlic abundance this year? We planted 0 garlic this year, because last year we had garlic planted and we never harvested it and we never weeded it, and it was sad and pathetic. We were like, well, let's not. Oh, thanks so much, Black Dog. You're always so generous. Just about to go though. Yeah, we're starting. Someone saying peonies are $3 to $6 a stem. Even if we had to like blow them out at like, some crazy wholesale flower market, like we'd still for sure be able to get $1 off of peonies, even with then all the extra layers of markup on them. A peony farm's a great idea. Okay, so I gotta go. There's popcorn hopefully waiting for me. I need to get in there before they eat it all. But yeah, so we have a video coming out on Wednesday, and then we're going to be We have the Mother's Day video done. We're talking about premiering it, and then if we do that, I think we'd probably do it like Friday evening. But if not, like Friday during the day or Saturday during the day, is the plan. And if we're gonna do a premiere, we'll figure that out soon, so that you guys can know, because we need to give you some notice, or there's no point doing a premiere. And for you guys, if you're wondering what that is, it's basically the video releases, and there's like a chat, and like we're there, and we all like get to watch the video together. The one bad thing about it is if you don't get there in the beginning of the video, you start in at the point at which everyone else is. So because the video is like over 50 minutes, right? If you're late by 15 minutes, then you miss the beginning of the movie type thing. So it's a little annoying if you just want to see the video, but it's a really good one. So it's one of those ones where it's like it's worth like hanging out if you can only make the back end, but then like going and watching the rest of the video. Okay, yeah, thanks so much for hanging out, guys. You know, it always feels amazing how many of you guys want to come and hang out and chat about me spending all my money on tulips. But yeah, okay, we'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye now.